Well, good afternoon, everybody. How y'all doing? Pretty good here, and welcome to the channel. Hey, real quick, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Today, we're going to do something a little wacky. I've been talking about soldering and stuff, or I've had a couple videos out about it. And if you're soldering wires and things, you're going to be inside your truck, and you might be resting, a trim piece or something on your lap as your workbench, because you got to keep the wires together and you got to solder and get the solder in the right spot and all that stuff. So I know there's a lot of us out there that might use something like this to work on. Now this is actually a trim piece from a Tacoma A-pillar, or a Tundra A-pillar rather, but it's the same kind of material that's used in the Tacoma and the Tundra. So I thought it'd be interesting to see what happens, if you slip a little bit, let's say, or maybe you get a little bit of solder on this thing because you're working. Is it going to damage it? Can you just flick it right off? I don't know. And God forbid, what happens if the end of your soldering iron contacts this thing while you're working? I don't know. Also, a little wacky thing I wanted to try. How flammable is this stuff? Your truck is basically covered in this on the inside, sometimes on the outside. So what happens if something really hot contacts this, or even a flame? How likely is it to take off and ignite? I don't know, but we're going to find out. Little disclaimer, don't try this at home. I'm a professional. Okay, we got everything set up out here. Let me lay out the scene for you. You're sitting in your truck. You've got your trim piece on your lap. Now, this is going to be a more ideal situation, obviously. But you've got the trim piece on your lap. You've got your wire. You're ready to solder it together. You can't do it away from the truck because one of the wires is connected to the truck, right? So you got to do it in the truck. Let me point you down here. I'll show you what I've got. Soldering iron should be all heated up right now. And I'll zoom you in. You guys can see there's my wire, and of course I have it nicely taped up. Ideal circumstances or situation for what I'm doing. So I want to solder this connection together here, right? Now, first of all, don't make fun of my soldering skills. I'm not a professional solderer, but this is how I would do it. So we have our soldering iron here. It's all nice and heated up. We got a little bit of solder, and we're gonna get started here. So we're delicately trying to do this inside the truck because that's what we do. And we got some solder going. You got to get it to flow. Oops. And this is about how it usually goes for me. I don't know about you guys, but and you can never have enough solder. You really got to go nuts when you're soldering stuff. So you get it on there, and that's actually a fairly good soldered joint, right? But invariably, sooner or later you're going to drip a piece of this solder, right? I mean, you're going to drip some of it on wherever the heck it is you're trying to do, unfortunately, but it's going to happen. And there we go. We've dripped a piece on our plastic trim right there. So we're going to let that cool. We're not going to do anything with it because if we were to try to grab that as soon as it dropped on there, we're going to have a little problem, right? I mean, it is hot. It is solder. So our joint is done. Now while we're doing this, it's hot. It's slippery out here. We're going to slip. We're going to touch. We're going to touch the trim just a little bit. Now we got solder on the end of the iron, right? But we're going to touch it just a little bit. Then we're going to see what happens. Now, God forbid, let's say that you get distracted, the better half comes out, wants to talk to you about something, I don't know, so you're doing this because you're talking to her, and it might be something pretty important like Junior failed his math test today, and you do that. Well, obviously you can see what happened there. How long does it take? Let's do it for real. Let's just touch it, and that's just touching it, and you can see it doesn't take very long. I mean, I can be through this plastic pretty darn quick. Now I put a hole all the way through it. But you can see, you just have to touch it. Of course, now I got plastic on my soldering iron, a less than ideal situation. But it does mar this up pretty darn easily. So you can see, obviously, that's not something you want to happen. We're going to let that plastic burn off there a little bit. So now I've shown you what will happen if you contact this plastic with your soldering iron. We did get a decent connection there on the wire though. Let's go ahead and take that off. Now, ignoring of course the carnage I've done here, you guys can see right there. I mean, obviously that's an extreme case, but these little marks and things here and this little dimple there, you can see obviously what would happen. But forgetting about all of that, let's say that we just wanted to flick off this piece that we got on the plastic. It just dripped, right? So if you do that, and I'm not sure how well that's going to show up, it did flick off, but it did slightly discolor the plastic there a little bit. It may have just started to melt it, but it's kind of hard to tell. In the right light, I can definitely see a different texturing there. So you don't want to drip solder on your plastic trim piece. Obviously you don't want to touch the trim piece. You can see the damage that this would do. Now this isn't rocket science, I realize, you know, hey, if you touch plastic with something hot, obviously it's going to damage the surface. So just something you need to be aware of. If you're soldering around any plastic bits or anything that shows, you want to make sure that you don't touch your plastic, because if you do, you're going to have a problem. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get the soldering iron turned down here. I'm going to give you a great big shot of my head. There we go. Let's zoom you out a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and get this shut down, get that soldering iron cooling off. I believe most of the plastic, hopefully that I got on it, is melting off. You can see a little bit of smoke there. And we're going to try the next part of that test, and that is, how flammable is this stuff? We saw there that if I just hold the soldering iron on it, enough obviously to put a hole through it, you guys can see, it doesn't ignite. That doesn't surprise me. This isn't like a, you know, a jar of alcohol or gasoline or something. It's not going to go poof. But there was no ignition at all that I could see. Now maybe if you left it on there longer something would happen, I don't know. But pretty satisfied with that. But let's hold this to a flame. How quickly does this stuff ignite? I don't know. Let's check it out. Okay, now we're going to get on to the more exciting part. Fire. I love fire. I don't know why. But anyway, I want to see how quickly this stuff will ignite. So we're going to pick a spot, I don't know, somewhere, and check it out. Let me show you my setup for this. Point you down here. We have a just a simple house candle. And we're going to hold it to that. We're going to see how quickly it ignites and what happens. My guess is pretty quickly. And it's going to put off a bunch of that black stringy plastic stuff that always happens when plastic burns, right? So, without further ado, and again, don't try this at home. I'm just curious. How quickly does this thing ignite? So let's pick a spot. Let's go down here in the corner, right? I mean, this thing's already ruined, so let's hold that on, see what happens. Well, there's just a quick hit. You can see it's already turned black. That's not a big surprise, right? I mean, obviously plastic, when it gets near flame, it's going to turn black. But will it ignite? Let's hope it just doesn't go whoo and the whole thing ignites. I mean, I can't see that happening, but there, it's starting to take off. Now, it's kind of hard to see. Maybe you guys can see it there. It is burning right now, and it's going to start dripping. So indeed, it does ignite. Not sure if the camera's picking that up. It is still burning. You guys can see, and of course it's going to drip on me if I keep doing that. So we're going to put it out. There you go. And the plastic is, put the candle out too. The plastic is of course running down the edge. You guys can see, I think we're going to focus eventually. Just kind of melted, and we didn't get a lot of that black, you know, sooty kind of stuff that you usually get with plastic, but it did run, and it did ignite. Now, will I say that I'm overly surprised? Let me back you guys off. Okay, there we go. Now, am I overly surprised? Not really. I mean, it is plastic. It is going to burn, right? And it didn't really take that long. You know, I've burned other plastics for some reason, And sometimes they take a lot quicker to ignite, or right after they ignite, they go out if you take them away from the source of flame, fire. But not this one. This one continues to burn. So what does that tell me? Well, it tells me that the inside of your truck is indeed surrounded with fuel for fire. Is that a big deal? Yeah, it would only be a big deal, I suppose, if you were in some kind of horrific accident and there was a lot of fire around, obviously. But if you were in that kind of a situation, you probably have more to worry about than your A-pillar burning. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, just a wacky little video. I wanted to get on here. I was curious, you know, and I had this extra piece, and since the truck is surrounded in this stuff, I thought it'd be interesting to see, especially the soldering part. You know, don't ever do any soldering using your plastic bits as your workbench while you're sitting in the truck. Get a piece of wood, maybe a piece of metal. Metal would be the best probably, but wood would suffice. So that if you do drip any solder or touch the end of that iron on something other than what you want, you don't ruin your trim piece, because nothing would be worse than to get that solder joint just perfect and then look down and see that you accidentally tapped that plastic surface that you're using as your workbench with the soldering iron and ruined it. Anyway, I just wanted to get on here, do something a little unusual. I thought it'd be pretty cool. Satisfied my curiosity. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. You ever concerned about this stuff? You ever use your pieces that you want to keep, like your trim pieces, as your little workbench while you're working inside the truck? I hope not. As usual, appreciate you guys watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time on the web. Have a great day. Bye.